This is
Up
for Grabs, a podcast where three unfiltered friends talk about anything and everything. And now, here are your hosts, Tracy, Kim, and Rachel.
Welcome to Up for Grabs. I'm Rachel. I'm here with my crime-fighting friends, Kim.
Hello.
Hello, and Tracy.
Hi, we're not fighting crime. We're just talking about it.
My
We might
crime
fight.
gossiping friends.
We might fight with each other over this crime, but
That's true. We're not really solving. We're just being nosy.
Relaying the information.
yeah.
And today, on being nosy about people
Crime?
that died and crime, we're going to discuss. I think it was called Murder at Fox Hollow Farm. I guess I should have written that part down, but I just called it the Fox Hollow documentary on Hulu. It's something like that.
Yeah. Fox Hollow Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Something
it's
like
on Hulu, and it's a
Something about
documentary.
a playground for a killer or something. They made the second, like the tack-on name, kind of dumb,
Yeah.
and I was like, you didn't need to put
I didn't
that.
even pay
No.
attention to
Okay,
it.
well, don't go back and look because it
I'm
was.
gonna go look.
Okay, but we first we saw this promoted, and the reason that it originally appealed to me to look more into it was because it happened basically a mile or two from where I went to grade school. I mean, it like really close in Indiana. So it happened in Westfield, Indiana, which back in the 90s was truly mostly farmland and not the big city. Like
No, it was the boonies.
it was going really out there. So I remembered in my mind that I remember hearing about these murders, but I never heard anything else about it. Like it
Yeah.
kind of was like a really shocking headline in the 90s, and then
Nothing.
nothing. Like you didn't hear anything about it. And back then, without the internet and stuff, you just kind of forgot about it. Like if it wasn't in the paper or talked about on the local news.
Right.
Nobody
and I think
talked.
that would be hard for our younger listeners. We do have younger listeners. I think that would be hard for them to understand that, you either got what was put on your doorstep from the day before,
Correct.
that information, or you had to tune into the news at
5.
6 a.m.,
Yeah,
5
5 to 6.
p.m.,
Yeah.
or 10 o'clock p.m.,
Right.
or you didn't know what was happening. I mean, I guess on the radio every now and then they did the news for 2 minutes.
Yep.
But I mean, your world was very small. And if it didn't impact you, then you didn't know. And I mean, the news was for adults back then.
Yeah, I never watched
Like
it.
teenagers didn't know, 20-somethings just weren't that in the know for the most part.
No, I agree.
So basically, the Fox Hollow, I'll give just a general overview and then I'll let Tracy kind of get into it. But basically, the story is that in the early 90s, a large group of men went missing in Indianapolis. Wasn't really put together that they had anything in common for probably way too long. Basically, since they were gay men, I think people like the police didn't care.
That's correct.
And-
Absolutely.
And they alluded to that in the documentary, and it's true. I mean, sad to say, but it is true. So these people went missing, and it comes about, which we'll get in the specifics, but that this man, Herb Baumeister, who lived in Westfield, was going to these gay bars in Indianapolis and picking up men and taking them back to his Westfield farm and then killing them and dumping them behind his house. Is that pretty much it?
Pretty much it.
So that pretty much, but that's not it at all.
Correct.
I know.
There's
That's
so
all I
much
knew.
more to it.
And just a little side note, it was interesting. Let me back up. He owned Save-A-Lots.
Yeah.
So that's where he got, not that he was a multimillionaire by any means,
Right.
but this farm and house was very, very nice.
Yeah.
So that's where his money came from. And he worked at Save-A-Lots and owned a few. which no
Yeah.
longer exist. I mean, they don't
No.
exist anymore, but I do
No.
remember that Save-A-Lots.
You do?
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the overview. But this documentary that's, like we said, is out on Hulu, really gets back into it in the here and now, and you realize just how much we didn't know and that people didn't kind of care about, which
How
kind of
much
makes me
was
sick.
overlooked and
Yeah.
just forgotten about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tracy, if you want to take it from there.
Okay. And I'm kind of have to jump around because this
I know.
covered like 30 years more than.
Well, that's what the
than
documentary
10.
did. It kept saying like now, and then it would.
Yes, it would go back and
But
it would go
there's
forward
so
their
much
timeline.
that
There
there's-
is so
And I
much.
did listen to a podcast by one of the producers of that documentary, and he mentioned there might be follow-up documentaries about it.
They
because
left a
of
lot of-
all the interest
Because
that it
there's so much going on.
And a lot of unanswered questions. Like when it ended, I thought, wait a minute, because it was 4 episodes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So so it's not a huge investment of
Well,
time.
this is definitely stirring up stuff in the community again.
It is.
Yeah. So
Or for the first time.
Yeah.
really, you're right, for the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
So thanks to
So,
thanks to the people that care.
and thanks to, I will say, Coroner Jeff Jellison.
Yes.
He's the
Man.
coroner in Hamilton
Oh.
County. I love him.
He's the hero.
He cried for a second, and that hurt my heart when he did that.
Yeah.
He has basically apologized for the people that came before him because he was not there, and saying there were somebody dropped the ball and there was a lot that should have been done that wasn't. So anyway, we'll get into it. So he was contacted by a man named, and I have to look at my names because I'm not good at it, Eric Pranger.
Yes.
And Eric Pranger was a guy who needed a job, and he got a job at a mortuary. Mm-hmm. And, so kind of a weird thing, but I think that made him think more about what was happening. He had a cousin named Alan Livingston, and Alan had gone missing during that time. Alan's mom was still alive, but she had brain cancer. I did see that she has since died a
She
few
did,
months
yeah,
ago.
they did say that, yes.
Yeah. So he wanted to get Alan back to her before she died, if at all possible. So he contacts this coroner and says, I know that there are some remains or bones. Like, what do we have to do? And this guy's like, I don't really know what you're talking about. I didn't work there then. What's going on? And so he calls University of Indianapolis, which is where they house the bones.
Yes, isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. And he says, hey, do you have some bones there? I'm trying to see if maybe I can connect somebody. And she says, yes, we have more than 10,000 bone fragments. And he says, do you mean 1,000? Thinking that would be a lot. And she said, no, I mean 10,000. Which he said makes it and
I
you
wrote
might
that
be able
down.
to say this better than me, the second largest.
It's the second largest human remains other than the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Other than the World Trade
Yeah,
Center.
and I find it very interesting, and I don't know why UND has the bones, but
I think they have a really big anthropology.
Oh,
Some
that's
sort of
true.
forensic
Okay.
anthropology
Okay.
lab.
Yeah.
And it's the only one in the state.
okay.
So
Well,
they
yeah,
are just
it's really
housing
interesting.
them there. But if you saw it, they are in like
It's
when you
bizarre.
used to get a 12-pack of Coke in those cardboard, the bottom was cardboard. That's where they're sitting, like in those things. And I heard another podcast the other day about it because I listened to several to get some other information.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was when they gave, and maybe you guys saw this in the video and I missed it, but the families that they could identify when they gave the bone fragments back to them, they were handed to them in a paper sack.
Yeah. I remember
What?
they did mention something in that at the very end.
Yeah.
When they talked about like somebody
A
that
paper
they
sack. So they weren't cremated, which I'm jumping around, but Eric Pranger did cremate the ashes and presented them to his aunt.
Yeah.
And when Jellison, the coroner, went to her house to talk to her, he noticed there was a landline phone sitting there, and he just making conversation said, you don't see those much anymore. And she said, no, it was the only phone number he had.
I know.
So for 30 years,
She kept it.
she kept
just in
that phone.
case. And that makes my like
Heart
goosebumps.
ache.
Yeah.
I know.
For 30 years to think, if he calls,
I
I'll be
know.
ready. So that was really heartbreaking. But I thought it was shot so well. I thought it was eerie and creepy in the way that it should be, but real life.
I did too.
I just thought it was done so well for a true crime documentary.
Okay, so why don't you take us to how the police ended up first hearing about the story of what might be going on at Fox Hollow Farm.
Okay, so the first instance of how they might have heard is a man, and we're going to have to talk about our opinions of him. A man by the name of Mark Goodyear went to the police, and
this was like in 1996, so or around there, like a couple years. So people had been missing since like about 92, 93.
Right.
So in 96, he came forward.
Yes. And he said, I met up with this guy. His name was Brian Smart, which we haven't mentioned yet, and I'll explain why. And he said, we left the club together. We'd had fun, and we left together. We drove out into the boonies. He didn't know where it was, which is not unusual for back then.
No, because
if you didn't have any reason to drive there, you wouldn't know where it was.
No, it's very hidden.
But he said he didn't know where it was. A female officer did go with him and drive around and try to find the spot. He knew it had the word farm. Long story longer, they couldn't find where it was. But what he said was, I was on a date with this man, and he was into erotica asphyxiation, and he said it was consensual, but he took it too far, and he thinks that this guy might be involved in some of the missing or something bad, basically. The police said, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
They wrote him off, really.
There was no follow-up. Now, does Mark Goodyear look like a Looney Tune? Kind of. A little
Kind
bit.
of.
Oh, yeah, he does.
He crazy.
He has crazy in his eyes.
He does have crazy in his eyes. And a little bit, I'm not going to say I like him. Because I think he's involved.
Yeah.
So that would be horrible. But I think he's probably always been an oddball.
Right.
Well, yeah.
His whole life. I mean, you don't just turn into that. I think he's always been an oddball, and I could see at some point prior to all of this, I would have liked him because I would have felt bad for him.
Right. I can see how you could say that. One thing that stuck out to me that they didn't talk about in the documentary that I was surprised they didn't even delve into, or maybe nobody would talk, was that in the gay community, they made it seem like everybody knew everybody at these, like, there's a handful of bars downtown. And Mark Goodyear had this big, wild personality. Like, he was outspoken and he told wild stories. Like, I have to feel like everybody would have known who he was. Mm-hmm. I would have been interested if they could have had a talk with, hey, you knew Mark Goodyear back in the 90s. Yeah. What was he like?
Yes.
There was no backstory on him other than the fact that he hooked up with Herb Baumeister.
I know.
And got
it was
away.
Very strange because I think that in the community, the gay men probably thought he was crazy. I mean, when he kind of delved into saying, I was screaming at the top of my lungs saying this kind of stuff was happening. I know I'm like jumping ahead a little bit.
No, but I wrote that down too. I'm like, who were the witnesses for that? Were you really?
Yeah, there's a lot that you just don't know about him.
Yes. And he would have had to know a lot of them. The gay community in Indianapolis is still very small and tight. Not small. There are a lot of gay people in Indianapolis. Back then it was smaller, the ones that were out and at the clubs all the time. Now, were there people like Baumeister who would show up, at some points? Of course. There would be people that weren't there all the time. But that wouldn't have been a big deal either, but they would know that they were not there all the time.
They weren't regulars.
They would recognize them as interlopers. Like I love that they interviewed the man named Steve from Greg's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like he probably knew the backstory of almost every person that came in the bar.
Because he talked about being friends with the guy and opening Metro. We've all, for the listeners, we have all been to Greg's.
Yes.
It's a very inviting place.
It is a very inviting place.
It is.
And a lot of fun. I now picture like a wall with the missing
Yes,
posters.
like a beam that kind of in the middle of the
Yeah,
bar
that
that
it would
had
have
all
been.
the, yeah.
And I want to say a couple things on that before, and I know I'm, again, jumping around, but sorry, help me. What was I saying?
You were talking
About the community itself?
Nope. The missing, I guess
Yeah.
the missing
Okay.
posters. That they made them themselves. They weren't the police
Right,
missing
right.
posters. Like, no one else was looking for them. But they also said, and that's what it was. When he said in the interview, he said, you have to remember, too, at that time, Indianapolis was at the height of the AIDS crisis. So there were people either getting sick and withdrawing, and because they didn't want to infect their friends, or dying,
And yeah.
or moving away. I mean, to go be with family because they were sick, and there weren't cell phones, so you couldn't. Somebody's missing for a couple of weeks before you say, "Hey, I haven't seen so and so around."
Yeah. And I think they also made the point is a lot of the people that were missing had kind of withdrawn from their family, like because they were gay or maybe weren't accepted for that. They didn't have anyone calling for them because nobody was looking out for
A lot
there
of
are
them
a lot
were
of-
the outliers.
A lot of circumstances that led to maybe not a lot of attention given to it.
Kind of a perfect storm, too.
Yeah.
And I want to say, throw this in there because it involves us a little bit. Indie Youth Group, Indiana Youth Group, IYG, was created in 1987. And I was thinking of that throughout this because it was created for the young, mainly men, who, so that it started in someone's living room, but it was a place for them to go when they'd been kicked out or on the street, and they would learn, how to interact.
I didn't know this.
I didn't either.
Yeah. So all this stuff, and I think you guys know that my cousin Tommy, who has passed, but he was one of the originals. He wasn't like one of the main originals, but he was very early. It was the first youth group for Indianapolis. But as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, did they start this partially because they were seeing people missing, and they said, "Hey, we've got to help these people on the street that." That don't have anywhere to go. We got to figure out a place for them to go. And now your cousin runs it.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird
That is
situation
weird. I mean,
that it comes
that
back
there was a
around, but-
crisis going on, not only because of AIDS,
Right.
but just the need for that community to be watching out for each other and being taken care of.
Yep. So I
Yeah.
just thought that was an
That
odd
is
little-
really interesting.
That I thought, I wonder
It's
if
really
that played into
coincidental,
it.
the
And I didn't-
timing- the
I don't-
timing of
yeah,
it.
and I don't think it is coincidental. I think that makes sense to me.
No, it makes sense to me too.
That would be a time to do something like that.
Yeah.
So where are we back to? Mark Goodyear.
He's weird.
He is weird. What would you like to say about him?
I guess in this part of the story, when he went to the police originally, he just said, he was the one that got away. Like, I don't know.
He outsmarted,
He outsmarted him. He just knew not to hurt him. And they're like, okay, thanks for coming in. And he left. And then nothing was really looked into it until this is where I think it's also a little sketchy. In the documentary, it said that Goodyear went around and told all his friends, here's what this man looks like. Watch out for him.
And called the police several times, he said.
Like trying to get you. And so what happened was a friend of Mark Goodyear's saw someone that met that description, Herb, and wrote down his license plate number and called the police and said, check out this license plate number. And that was Herb. Like that's how they connected it.
Yes.
That it was Herb. And then I thought it was so funny. The deputy said that she went into the Save-A-Lot to interview him. And she's like, yeah, he was weird. She's like, he was so nervous and he acted really, really. I'm like, then why didn't you push him?
Yeah, the fact that they
And they were like, oh, we
They're like,
don't,
did you
we don't
murder
have
anybody?
they never really brought him in for
No, he was never questioned.
No.
never.
They came to his house and said, we'd like to look around. And he said, do you
No.
have a warrant? And they said, no. So they left. Like, excuse me? Like, how is that even a thing? So then, anyway, we're fast forwarding. All right, I'm going to reverse.
Okay.
Go back in time.
That was good.
Thank you.
Kind of like the documentary did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to 1971.
Okay.
Herb is at IU.
Okay.
His dad is not impressed by him. He's not doing well. He'd already flunked out once,
Yep.
came back.
Uh-oh.
He marries Juliana. Mm-hmm. Juliana. Not saying that right. Whatever. Back up a little bit more. When he's an adolescent, his dad secretly takes him to a psych ward center.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets diagnosed as schizophrenic. Dad keeps that to himself. Dad's a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist. Now, I will say mental health was treated differently back then. It wasn't treated a lot than now. But I guess Dad knew something was off enough to take him in. As far as we know, he was never treated, and no one was told that was that. So, now, 71, he's married.
Which truly shows that there's someone for everyone, by the way. I was like, wait a minute.
A lid for every pot.
Absolutely, because they didn't touch on her very much at all.
I was surprised she even showed her face.
And I would really like to know a little bit about her.
I think she's a big fat liar.
I do too.
Really?
I think she turned a blind eye and was living off of what he was giving her financially and living the lifestyle and just ignoring everything else that was
I just
going
think
on.
she didn't know what to do, so she didn't do anything.
Anything.
I 100%.
I refuse to believe there was never any blood
No.
on any clothes. No, why are his clothes so muddy from
Well,
pulling
100%.
him these bodies into the
Okay, well, two
woods?
things.
Smelling the burning.
Any of it?
Yeah.
Two things about that.
What?
One, I thought it was a huge red flag that maybe his wife overlooked. She would leave for the summer.
That's the
every
thing.
summer with the kids and go to Wawasee or wherever they went. They had a house at Wawasee. I'm like,
Yeah.
she left him alone every summer and went with the kids.
Well, part of that is she said they only had sex 6 times in 25 years.
And I think she probably knew he was a gay man. I do. I mean,
Yeah, but
definitely.
they only had sex 6 times and they had 3 kids.
That is a
That's
jackpot.
a wonderful
Wow, there's some
conversion rate for
that is some
her.
potent-
Well, I think somebody was paying
sperm.
attention to when things were happening.
Okay.
I mean, that can't be sheer luck, can it? No, I don't know.
No.
No.
So, yeah. So that's part of it. You know, I think she thought. I doubt that there was a lot.
Yes.
I
A
think
marriage
that
of
was
convenience, maybe.
Marriage
So,
of
yeah.
convenience, right? So,
Oh, but wait a minute. You're missing the biggest red flag that she missed. So
What?
the wife doesn't ask a lot of questions when her son and his friend found the skull in their
yeah.
backyard.
That's
I
why I
wasn't
know.
there yet.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, but
But that's a huge red flag.
She knew things.
Yeah,
And she
the
was like, "Oh."
son finds a human skull, puts it on a stick, and runs in the house. Well, Weirdo Junior. No, I'm just kidding. It's not his fault. That is not his fault because of his dad. I take it back.
Junior, weirdo junior.
I said I take it back.
She took it back.
No, it's just
That
funny.
doesn't count. Rewind. With friends, and she's like, "What is that?" Well, it looks like a human skull, Mom, and there's more bones back there. And well, wait till your dad gets home. We're going to find out what's going on. What? Why are you not calling the police? What are you doing? So, Dad comes home and says, "Oh, that was my dad's from his when he was in medicine.
It's pretend.
It's it was just from that. I'll get rid of it." You know. What do you mean? What do
The
you mean?
raccoons got in the garage and drug it out to the field,
it's
is what he said. I'm like,
nonsense.
and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
So she couldn't have possibly believed that. So they get married in 71. In 72, his dad comes to visit and has him committed to a psychiatric hospital for 2 months.
Yep.
After the marriage?
Yes, the same year, the year after they got married.
Well, I wonder what he did then.
I don't know. But then he came back. Everything must have been fine. Then he worked for the BMV.
Makes sense.
He was there for 11 years. And one thing that stuck out to me was, okay, so he worked there from 74 to 85. He got fired for peeing on desks.
Excuse me?
Yeah, he was peeing. Apparently there was a letter from the governor or going to the governor, and he stood on a desk and peed on it. That was not the final straw, but it was one of the last ones.
Wait, what? You could do that and not get fired?
Apparently. Also, during that time, he sent a Christmas card to all of his friends. Now, in today's day and age, it would be funny. But in the 70s, he sent a Christmas card and he's married with kids, that is a picture of him and a man in drag. And people were like, what is this? I don't
Maybe
know.
that's why his dad sent him to the psych ward. I mean, that's
it just
crazy.
doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So
How did you find this out?
Was
Were
this
you on
from-
his recipient list?
Was
for
this
his
other
Christmas
podcasts
cards?
and stuff you were listening to? Because
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I'm like, am I missing that?
Okay, so I just thought those things were interesting.
Well,
crazy.
those are red flags, most definitely. I mean, it
They're
doesn't
just-
mean
it's
you're a
just
killer.
unusual behavior.
But that is really
If
unusual.
someone was peeing at my workplace,
I think you need to be fired the next day. I
Yeah.
mean, what the
I would say mid pee, you need to be fired.
Midstream.
Yes,
So he worked there 74 to 85 when he got fired.
Okay.
So 1985 was the first body found in Indiana on I-70.
Yes.
I think they barely touched on this in the movie.
They didn't
Or
touch
did they
on
not
it at
at
all.
all?
I saw it
No, I
on
was going to say, I don't remember
I'm
that.
crossing over then.
I saw it online and I thought, why didn't they talk about this in the documentary? Because this totally makes sense. Go ahead and say.
And maybe that will come out in other things, other editions of it. But the police believe that he is responsible for the I-70 murders.
Which I had never
Wow.
really heard of, and I live right by I-70.
I had heard of the I-70
I've listened to a
rumors.
podcast about him.
Yeah.
So what? It was between like
There were-
85 and
85
And 90 or something?
Well, when did he buy the house?
like in early 90s, like 90 or 91.
91. So 85 to 91, there were 10 bodies found
Yeah.
along I-70.
All men.
All men. Most, and I believe several, if not all of those, have been identified. They were like, again, young gay men who were walking to the gas station.
Yeah.
Somebody stop. Hey,
You need a ride?
Need a ride?
Yep.
Okay. Somebody waiting for a job application at McDonald's. I
Yeah.
mean, like people that needed something, and
So
he
they think
offered
that
whatever
was-
it was they needed.
That was his dumping ground before he bought an 18-acre farm.
Makes you wonder why exactly he bought that
He
farm.
bought an 18-acre farm, and then all of a sudden they stopped.
Yeah.
The only reason I said something about the BMV because I was like, I wonder, like, would he have had the knowledge? Was he looking then at what road construction was going to happen? Like, where would be a desolate spot? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the mind of a
would he
serial
know those
killer
things
definitely makes you
because
wonder.
of that. Did he have
Yeah.
some sort of information? In 1985, he got a DUI, hit and run. Then his dad died in 86. 88, he opened the Save-A-Lots.
Which I don't know how you make $300,000 running a Goodwill. I'm
I
like,
know.
what else?
I don't either. I
didn't
think
get that.
was right.
I don't know. I thought that was weird too. I was like, you can, because that it is like, it's a
I
good
mean,
will.
you can make some money, but you're not going to make that kind of money, and not back
Yeah.
then. I mean, everything would have been $1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just think
Yeah.
that seems crazy. So, more and more people are missing. 91, he moves to Westfield. 5 men reported missing in 93. In 94, he starts to have marriage troubles, business troubles. 94, he gets a DUI up in Wawasee. So
Oh,
he must
boy.
have gone for 1 weekend.
Okay.
94 was when the son found the skull.
Okay.
95 is when Tony Harris, who was with Mark Goodyear, gets the license plate number.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't have
So-
his name. Okay.
Yeah, they were together, and he said, hey, write that down.
That's that guy. Yeah.
So then 95 police confront Juliana. They say, no, you can't come on the property. 96, she files for divorce. Like all those things, and she's finally
Yeah.
going to file for divorce.
Yeah.
She's going to get there.
Okay. And
But that gave them the permission to search, right? She said, go ahead and
she
search.
said you can
Yeah.
come on the property.
Yeah.
So she knew.
Well, my question at that point, so
Yes.
if you get to the point where you want to divorce your husband because you're pretty sure he's killing people, and you tell the police it's okay for them to come and check for other remains, where was he? And why didn't the police want to know where he was before they started looking?
I know.
And there are professionals that are questioning that. Why was no one tailing him?
No, they did not at all.
No.
You know what the quote was in the documentary? He didn't seem like he was the kind of guy that would run. That's what, like, basically because he's a upper middle class white man.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll run. He's fine.
Which is what Mark Goodyear said.
Ugh.
He said that they will say no one will listen to you.
No, exactly. Because he appeared normal.
He said, I am a married
Yeah, he appeared normal.
upper class white guy, and you're a gay man. No one will listen to you.
Right. That, sadly, it was true.
That makes me mad. So let me go back. So we've talked about Herb and Julia.
Yes.
Juliana, whatever. Mark Goodyear, we've talked about. Oh, you know who we haven't talked about?
Oh, no.
Robin Vicky Graves.
I knew you were going to say
Rob
that.
Graves.
He's Robin Graves.
I need some explanation.
Okay, so here's what happened, people. After all these remains were found, 10,000 bone fragments?
They believe 25 bodies.
At least.
And the count's probably way higher than that. But
So the house, surprise, is for sale because Juliana was done and there it was on the market. And in this documentary, I think this man comes off the creepiest of them all.
Thank you. I was wondering what you guys would think about him.
No, he scared me.
So
this man
was
comes on.
letting everybody in that house
He
to
could
do
not
whatever.
wait to talk all about it. So,
man.
but the thing that I thought was interesting, so this man, his name is Rob Graves. He's married with his wife's, Vicky. He says originally he and Vicky had horses and they just really needed a place for them. And they happened to go out to Fox Hollow Farm when it was for sale. And the realtor or somebody said, well, you know what happened there, don't you? And he said, no, what happened here? And they told him, and he turned to his wife and said, so we better go, right? And she said, oh no, let's go ahead and give it a look. And then they bought it. And then for the man that knew nothing about it, in this documentary, he unearths boxes and boxes of memorabilia and
Mannequins
pictures and like he is keeping a museum of this place. He didn't change any of it.
Including the swimming pool. So we haven't talked about the swimming pool.
Right.
Rachel?
It's the most disturbing part of the documentary. If you watch it on Hulu, it might be worth just to see the recreation of the swimming pool area. Because when they were talking about when Mark Goodyear was saying, hey, he made me go back to his house and we went to his pool. So they
indoor swimming pool.
They show Fox Hollow and it has this beautiful, at the time that was bougie to have an indoor swimming pool.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? So yeah, they show, this indoor swimming pool. Well, Mark Goodyear tells the police that's where the murders take place.
Yeah.
That's where he strangles people.
He was taking pool hoses.
And just strangling them. So this Rob Graves guy buys the house, suddenly writes a book about this. A book.
This guy is so creepy.
Kept everything the same. And they're like, oh, do you, you know that the murders took place in the pool, right, Rob? And he's like, yeah, of course. And like he knew way too much about it and was like so eager to tell every last detail. And then they showed a clip of him swimming in the pool. And what is extra creepy, at least he did take the mannequins out of the pool area. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Probably just when the cameras came. I for some reason, I think that so basically when Herb would take the men to the pool, he had a bar area in the pool with mannequins dressed like they were standing around at a party.
And these mannequins were from his Save-A-Lot stores.
Yeah.
So he had a weird obsession with mannequins. They said that.
He did.
I will say that one thing that I read that wasn't in there, okay, it doesn't make it less weird, but it does make it a little bit less weird. According to his wife, he had become a hoarder. And he was bringing all of this stuff back from the store, and it was piled everywhere. And her nice, fancy home was trashed by all this stuff everywhere. So then I picture a hoarder bringing home these mannequins,
Yeah.
dressing them up as like they're at a party. I mean, he had to have been completely Looney Tunes by then.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was some definite mental health issues going on.
But the whole thing with Mark Goodyear, though, that made him seem extra crazy was that if I walked into some man's house and he said, let's get in the pool, and there were a bunch of dressed up mannequins around, I don't care if I was out in the middle of nowhere.
That's red flags.
I would be gone.
He's like, so we had some drinks, we swam,
I knew
we
he
had
didn't
sex.
he say? Yeah, I knew he was trying to drug me.
Like I outsmarted him.
when he kept saying, "Oh, you can." He was only out for 40 minutes. There's so much stuff we
Yeah,
could
there
say
was a
about.
part where he talked about
I'm like, then why didn't you run in those
he
40
drugged
minutes?
Herb.
Yes.
Herb tried to drug him. He emptied the class.
The old
He drugged
switcheroo.
Herb.
It was-
And then the guy's like, so, why didn't you go? And he's like, well, he was only out for 40 minutes. Oh, you must not know
never
that
been
much
drugged.
about being drugged. I'm like, well, what do you
that
know
to
about
me
being drugged?
was just like,
how many people have you drugged?
that we need to go back. I mean, when we're done with this part, because Mark Goodyear,
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're to the part where
we're the crazy people that bought the house.
yeah. So
Turned it into basically a freak show in there.
a museum.
Letting everybody come in there.
But they have kids. They're living there. I mean,
they were letting paranormal
kids?
people come in. They were letting,
So the story goes on because this man, Rob Graves, is so in love with this Herb story that he allows these paranormal people, this man
Investigators,
and woman, to come in and film at his home for a documentary. And he couldn't have been more excited to lead them all the way around the property. So this is where
he's so enamored with Goodyear.
Yes,
When
let's him
everyone
in his
else
house.
seems to think he's a weirdo.
he called him
And
a hero.
He did. He said, I really think he's a hero for going and doing that.
Really?
Where he meant going to the police and,
Yeah.
and talking about it. At what point should we say that we find out that it was not a one-time thing with Mark and Herb?
He said 2 years.
He said 2 years. So when this lady is making this documentary, he tells her, okay, it wasn't one night when I went out there. We were
And he didn't try to kill me.
He didn't try to kill me. We were in a relationship for 2 years, and then I turned him in.
Yeah, he was stalking, and it kind of got like almost a toxic relationship. We were stalking each other. We were. Nothing at that point to me made any sense what Mark Goodyear was saying. It was almost like he was getting caught up in one lie after another.
Right. Now, I think they were doing a lot of coke.
Yeah, a lot.
Not that that's explaining anything that's happening, but I just think that I think that a lot of people weren't all there during it.
Right.
But during this time, so Rob Graves lets these people come into his home. He introduces them to Mark Goodyear, asks them, hey, do you want to talk to him? So then they talk to him, and Mark Goodyear starts
He opens up Pandora's box.
telling a lot of information that they didn't have. And then they said, we didn't feel like we should be the keepers of this information. So they told
The coroner. Yeah.
And that's when it kind of comes back to the coroner getting back involved because they didn't know what to do with this new information that they were given.
Correct.
At that time, during that documentary, Mark Goodyear did also utter, the woman that was doing the documentary, you could tell she was really disturbed by this. And she was saying that he kept speaking in riddles, which isn't that the hallmark of a good killer, to speak in riddles?
Like real riddles, not like just like how
said-
you say, oh, they were speaking in riddles. No, he was giving her riddles.
He said to her, I am not a victim. I was never attacked. I am not a murderer. Exactly what am I? That's what he was texting to her. I'm like, a weirdo? Who does
The
that?
driver, like something.
Gross.
Crazy.
Okay. So then in the documentary, Tracy, do you want to pick it up where in 1996, Herb's lawyer, days after we haven't even gotten to that part yet.
So they're searching his farm.
Right.
Yes.
So according to Mark Goodyear, Herb is at his house, at Mark's house on the couch, watching the news where they are showing this unearthing of bodies on the news, and he says, I'm out of here, and he takes off for Canada. He is found about a week later by someone walking along a beach in Canada outside of his car, dead. There are a lot of questions around that.
No gun
Well,
was found.
no gun. The guy who found him said he didn't see a gun. The detective from Hamilton County, that was the detective back then, says
There was a gun.
there was a gun. And so I don't know. Was there a gun? Was there not?
Yeah.
But wait a minute. So Mark Goodyear was the only person that knew where Herb was going?
Herb called his brother when he was in California. I think he was estranged from his siblings.
Okay.
He called and said, I need some money. I'm on the lam. I don't know if he needed it for drugs, probably, but, and said where he was. So at that point, yes, though, Mark was the only one that knew where he was, or at least according to Mark. No one else knew that. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Just the fact that he, quote unquote, went to Canada and killed himself, but Mark's the only person that is corroborating that.
correct.
And he is also the person that would benefit from him not being alive if, in fact, Mark himself was involved in some way.
Now, when they find the car, it's been stripped down to nothing. I mean, like the carpet torn out,
Yeah, for somebody that committed suicide, he went through
and then killed himself outside
a lot
the car
of lengths to okay. I mean,
to hide the evidence that he didn't apologize for in his letter.
in the videotapes,
Yeah, so
that's a big thing.
they weren't there. The Canadian police said that they had pulled him over the day before, and there was a box in the back, at least a box, I don't know, of videotapes. At the murder scene, there are no videotapes.
Correct.
There is some speculation, not in that documentary necessarily, other than by what Mark says himself, that maybe Mark was there. Maybe Mark killed him. Maybe Mark took the tapes and did something with them. His wife said that there had been tapes down there. They were gone. That detective who had worked with Hamilton County back in the 80s and 90s, he said that there was a possibility that they were snuff films,
Yeah.
which I feel like we bring up way too much in this show, and I don't know how.
That's usually when I say, what's that? But I think I already know because we've brought this up before.
Yeah, what is it?
It's something bad, like people want to watch people die or something like
Yeah, it's
that.
videotaping you
People
murdering.
videotaping murdering someone, and then they sell it. It would have been some sort of black market
Right.
prior to internet nonsense. I was hypothesizing in my own head, what if Rob Graves was one of the purchasers back in the day of said tapes,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think how
Kind
this
of got
would
a
all
weird
kinda-
fascination with
That's the weird fascination with it.
wanting to be.
He won't tell on Mark because Mark, I think he knows
Knows
that
too
Mark
much.
was one of the killers. But Mark could say, I'll let them know that we were making them for you. Nobody said this. I'm making it up.
No, but I
But
like.
it's a good theory. I mean, it's
No, it's a plot. Who knows?
it's probable.
It could
I mean-
happen.
I mean, because otherwise, I don't understand. The only other person that brought up Mark being involved was a guy named
Leroy Bray.
Leroy Bray. Leroy Bray talked to
that
the
crazy
police.
Leroy.
I was gonna say, and it was so funny because the documentary guys were interviewing Mark Goodyear and asking him if they knew all these people, and they were like leading up to this, and I'm like, they said the name. Do you know Leroy Bray? Now, either you do or don't. Like he paused, like he had to think, which Leroy? There's only one Leroy, and you know who he is. Don't act.
Yeah, because they asked a couple other guys first to kind of act like they buried Leroy in the guys
Yeah.
that they was questioning. And he was like, yes, we get along great. He is, I love him.
And then he was
this
like-
all nice connection. And they go, really?
Because here's what did you write
Yeah,
down?
go ahead.
Yeah, Leroy Bray went in 1997. he reported a murder to the police. He said that he was at a home, which he described exactly like Herb Baumeister's home. And he said someone was shot and Mark Goodyear was holding that person's arms when they got shot. And he ran away. And so they say this to Mark Goodyear after he just said, oh, yes, I know Leroy. He's what a great guy. And then he says that and he goes, oh, well, he was a little mentally unstable.
Yeah, I don't know why he would say that. Yeah, it's something people would say about me. I don't know why that's
so
what
weird.
They would pick to say.
And then Leroy Bray is already deceased. So there's no one to check up on any of this.
There has to be. There has to be proof. Like, I want to know where the videotapes are.
I bet he destroyed him.
I think he destroyed him too. I mean,
he had to burn him just like he burnt everything else.
Yeah. I think that he purposely took them when he went on the run because he knew that would unearth.
So you think he just burnt them in Canada?
I think he disposed of them.
Because they were found in Canada. They were in the car. Well, at least there were videotapes. I assume it was those.
Unless Mark Goodyear took them.
I mean, I just feel like if they were still, I don't know, that the case was so botched that who knows.
Nobody paid any attention to it.
Nobody.
Because it was just a bunch of gay people. So really, that's what they said. And I'm like, that is so awful.
It goes back to the Jeffrey Dahmer story with the Netflix series. The main lady in it that lived in the apartment building that he was committing all the murders and begged the police to take a look at him, and the police didn't want anything to do with it because they were gay men.
Right.
Like it's just this pattern of in that specific time frame.
People not caring. Well, and that's kind of where this particular documentary ended, and that's why we said we still have a lot of questions, and we were hoping that maybe some more investigation will be done, because basically it ended saying, so this Leroy Bray is dead, so it's kind of a he said,
right?
And then it just says it ended with saying that the case, as of 2024, is still considered open.
Yeah, and
although back then in '96, the sheriff James Bradbury said he considered case closed. So I guess we're not going to assume that there were any accomplices. This man killed, according to Mark Goodyear, there were 56. Totally weird number to pull out.
Yeah, and he was pretty direct with that.
Yeah.
The coroner had mentioned, and this guy, God bless him, because a coroner normally isn't the person that's involved in the investigation of a case. And that, it just kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Like, where are the police? The police, they didn't want to comment. So they did say that at the end of the documentary. They did reach out to anybody that was involved in that before, and nobody wanted to comment. But the coroner was like, and he made a really good point, how can one person kill and pull these bodies deep into the woods and burn
hundreds
them,
of feet,
and do it by yourself and not?
If you've ever tried to pull dead weight,
it doesn't make any sense. This was a little man too. He was a little man. He wasn't like some big huge. I don't know.
I think the part also that stuck out to me with the coroner, Jeff Jellison, he is the hero of this whole thing. He really is. Because he was doing it because he knew it was right, not because that was really his job. He was doing it just because he was a decent person and had the position within the Hamilton County government to kind of have some connections to really open it back up. He did it out of the kindness of his heart, but oh no, I forget what I was going to say. Oh, when he when this cousin came to him and said, will you open this back up? Yeah. And he said, I'm going to do everything to help you. And he went on the news and said, hey, I'm going to kind of, if you have anybody in your life that went missing between 1992 and whatever around this time, let me know, because we're going to reopen this investigation. And he got either a text or an email from a councilman in Hamilton County saying, I don't know what you're doing.
We don't have the money or the funds to do this.
Yeah, we're not going to fund this. If the families want to know if their missing person is part of the bone pile, they're going to have to pay for it themselves. And if you guys know anything about Hamilton County, it's one of the richest counties
In the United States.
Okay, didn't know if it was the whole
I
of the
think
United
so,
States.
yeah. I mean, I know
These
it's
are
Indiana.
unsolved murders.
It's a
You
bunch of-
find the funding and you find the time to identify.
And that's why I love the Jellison guy. He was like, I wanted it even more after that man told me
Yeah.
no. So yeah, he was the hero for sure. If there would be a follow-up to this documentary.
So
Tracy?
what did you, with your research, I read today on one of the news stations saying that since this documentary, there have been hundreds of leads, hundreds more people coming forward wanting to know what happened to their loved ones. I mean, not hundreds, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They want to identify these bones. Where in your research did you find where it stands right now?
The last I saw, it was 18 total people that they can identify.
Okay, that's more than I thought that they were. Okay.
But I think that might count the I-70 murders too,
Okay.
because they are putting that on him. I mean,
It's just,
they're saying he is the one that did it. One thing that I wanted to mention before I forget is a question. Did Mark Goodyear go to the police because Herb killed Roger Allen Goodlett, who was more of a friend than the others? He's the one that when they mentioned his name, he got up and walked out.
Oh, yeah. He couldn't even
He
talk
got
about
upset
him.
and cried, went and had a cigarette, sat out back.
Yeah, I think I kind of overlooked that a little bit.
He got emotional. Like, is that part of the reason that he went to the police?
Is that
Like,
the only reason he went to the police?
why did he go to the police? I mean, if you've
What
killed,
pushed him to go?
let's just say you've killed 15 people,
Right.
even if we think it's 56. If you've killed 15 people, why go, I think it's time? Like, what makes that happen?
Yeah, something pissed him off and hurt his
Something
feelings.
personal. Yeah.
Something personal. So, or did Herb like Roger? I don't know. Like, I think that's
Yeah, something happened in their relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe, as much as he was talking on this show, I can't believe he hasn't talked more in the community. Like, why aren't people talking more? He said he had a partner that he lives with. I don't know if he said husband or not, but they have to know people.
I know.
I can see, he'd be a yapper. You give him a
Has
couple
he-
drinks
yes.
and yeah.
Did they say anything in the documentary about him ever being formally investigated? Did they mark
No.
him off as a person of interest? Has he ever had a lie detector?
No.
Has he ever had anything like
No.
that?
I don't think
No.
so.
They never even
Just blows my mind.
Nobody investigated it.
It
It didn't
but I'm
matter.
saying today, is it too much of their resources because they don't have any DNA linking him to it?
I think too many people have died.
Yeah.
That might have known something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a long
It's been
time ago.
30 years. Like that's a long time to get away with something.
But I don't believe that there aren't people in the community that know. Maybe they're afraid to talk. I don't know.
I would be afraid to talk.
Especially if Mark was involved. If
Which, by the
Herb
way-
did it alone, then maybe they would come forward.
Did you get the impression that Mark Goodyear is still in Indianapolis?
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe he lives on the east side.
Yeah.
Not that you looked. Yeah, that creeped me out too. I'm like, wait a minute.
Where's he going to go?
He's among us. I don't know.
I don't know. There's something definitely more that needs to be looked into with him. Most definitely.
So Tracy, if you could do that for us, if you could just kind of start
I'm on it.
just putting on her
Seriously,
super
though.
sleuth hat.
Well, and you guys know, I mean, part of the reason that I wanted to lead this and all is I have a son who is gay
Yes.
and in Indianapolis and goes to Greg's, goes to Metro.
Yeah.
In his room, we have a mirror that belonged to my cousin, and he gave it to Zach, and it was a mirror that was backstage at the 501 Club.
Mm-hmm.
So, like these places that were mentioned,
They're real places.
It's very close to
it
home.
is so close to home, and I'm thinking, I throw a tantrum if somebody says something less than the highest compliment about Zach.
Right.
I can't imagine him being gone, missing, without a trace, and nobody helping me.
Yeah.
How devastating that would
Yes.
have to be
I know.
for
Yes.
the rest of your life.
I know.
And nobody thinks that it matters.
Well, we can end on this. I think one of the things in the documentary that was the most satisfying is when the cousin,
Yeah.
what was his name?
Eric Pranger.
He was with Jeff Jellison and got him to get the bones. And so when they first took some of the bones, I don't know how many you can look at it at once.
Right.
But the very first ID out of 10,000
I know.
bones
That was
his cousin.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
And I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, the lab called and they're
Yeah.
like, we have a match. And Jellison's like,
Who is it?
well, who is it? What's the name? And when they said Alan Livingston,
Yeah.
that gave me goosebumps
Yeah.
since then, too.
Yeah. So
There's a reason for all of that. And,
Yeah.
and it might have just been to keep Jellison going.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's going to stop now, especially I think people are probably going to donate money. There is a memorial. He made sure there was a
Yep.
memorial,
Yep.
like a stone place for them to
kinda
go.
surprised he didn't-
Really nice. I mean,
I'm surprised he didn't get fired. I mean,
well,
I
it's
know
an
that's-
elected position, I believe.
okay.
So I think that
Okay.
I think he's a hero in that community. I mean, I
I hope
really do.
so.
I think
I
that
hope so.
I think that's why he still holds the position. So
He was
or does
just-
he? Is he
he-
retired?
Oh, wait. I read something. You can only serve 3, and I think he's getting ready to end. I think
Okay.
it's through 26.
Okay.
is
But the
his
fact that he keeps getting reelected, I mean, he's obviously a good man.
and he wouldn't be able to do it any longer.
Yeah.
And chances are those won't all be identified by then.
Right.
But hopefully whoever's next will continue to do it.
Yeah. So the documentary was called Murders at Fox Hollow Farm. It was on Hulu. It was 4 episodes. It was well worth
Absolutely.
digging into. If you want to be creeped out, you got to see this Mark Goodyear talk. He can really talk in circles. And I watched it twice, and I found the Rob Graves guy really tripped it for me the second time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The second time I went back after knowing the whole story, I was like, ooh, he's creepy.
He's talking in riddles a little bit too.
Yeah, he is. So yeah, I highly encourage you to watch it and give us your thoughts on it. True crime in our backyard is scary.
I was going to say our forte. So you went with
And our
scary.
forte. Yeah, that too.
Yeah. It made it all the more interesting. Really,
Yeah,
it did.
yeah,
It was.
yeah.
So.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today on Up for Grabs, and we look forward to having you all back again next time. Thanks.